Now, I want to get into the idea of earning Bitcoin. I want to get into Apollo. But first, I want to highlight a quote from the Apollo site. It's attributed to Steve Wozniak, and it's a quote that says, "Information should be free, but your time should not." Can you explain the meaning of that quote for me?
Sure. Yeah. So I first became familiar with the first part of that quote, the first half of that quote, which is information should be free. It's kind of a meme that I've seen floating around generally, also in, I guess, cypherpunk Bitcoin circles. Like, it's just a popular idea, right? Information should be free. There are kind of like noble piracy, like ideas bound up in that, and just this, this idea of bringing down barriers, bringing down walls, bringing down anything that's stopping the free flow of information. It also is something that I've heard people talk about in the context of maybe being a counter argument to either the utility or the likely success of micropayments, which is the idea being like, hey, information wants to be free. People don't like paywalls. Anything that gets in the way, any like dikes that you put up in the river or anything that like stops this flow is because of some fundamental, like something intrinsic to its nature. You're kind of running contrary to it, and therefore is unlikely to succeed. In other words, it's just a meme. Like, information wants to be free. But I was curious about it, and so I looked it up, right? And so the actual origin of this quote is from, I think it's there was some kind of hacker conference in the Bay Area in, I think, 1984, and Steve Wozniak and a bunch of other, I think, Apple folks were together in a room and hashing out really the early days of what it meant to be, like what does open source mean? What does building for the public mean? It's kind of an interesting time capsule to go, and it's not so easy to track down, but you can find a clip of this kind of back and forth. It's kind of a Socratic style debate. Anyway, and so there's this back and forth with Steve Wozniak, and I think
Stuart Brand was in the discussion as well.
Yeah. And so the kind of extended quote is, to summarize it, is basically this idea where Woz is saying, look, there's a paradox. There's kind of a trade-off. On the one hand, information wants to be really expensive because it's so valuable. It's so insanely valuable that it seems like it would make sense to put a high price on it. And on the other hand, it wants to be free because, by its nature, it's so, so easy to replicate and transmit and send to anybody in the world. So there's a tension there. And the kind of, so there's a back and a forth and then a synthesis, I think, towards the end of this clip where I think it says, look, okay, so information wants to be free, or information should be free, but your time should not. And so I think that the real understanding of this idea is that we need to reconcile these two concepts. Yes, information has this nature. There's a nature of information that wants to be free and replicate itself. But people's time is valuable, and people don't.
Right.
People never have liked giving away the fruits of their labor for nothing. And so, that's. I found that to be a really interesting quote because of this maybe irreconcilable tension between the two. And then I think the reason why we put it on our website is because we're building micropayments into everything that we do, Lightning micropayments. And so we want people to create value on Apollo, and we want people to get value from Apollo. And we think the best way to do that is to incentivize it with a market, and that maybe micropayments might be the way to do that.